Hello and welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe in the studios of our flagship stations, 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. In addition today, as always, we are on Birmingham Area Municipal Access, both of our TV stations on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99. Also on the radio, of course, 89.3 Lakes FM and 88.1 WBFH, The Biff. On the web, civiccentertv.com. Click on our Watch Live link on our homepage or join us on the small player at the top right of that same page as well. And on Facebook via Facebook Live on our pages again today, Civic Center TV 15 and facebook.com/LakesFM. And as always, joining me from her home studio in the city of Keego Harbor is Ronnie Dahl.
Tyler, happy Tuesday.
Yes, happy Tuesday to you.
Hey, did you see the rainbow last night?
I did see the rainbow last night. Yeah, very nice. After all that rain we got over the last couple of days and throughout the day yesterday here and there, it was very nice to see that rainbow.
I'm like a little kid because when the rain was coming through, I was like, oh, there's going to be a rainbow. And the last time I missed it and everyone was posting everything on social media. And I was so bummed I missed the rainbow. And so I was like waiting last night. But from our location, we don't really get a great view of it. I think we were a little bit close, but we saw the portion of it going over the Pine Lake Country Club. So still, it makes me excited.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of it. I took a Pontiac Trail back to my home last night, and so I saw on my way out of town after the township board meeting last night and getting a few more things prepared for today. But it was very nice sight out there, and good to see those back as we're getting out of the rainier season of the year and into the warmer seasons where we do have those rainstorms and then the hot air and the sun beaming down on it still even later on in the day that creates those great sights.
Mother Nature really is just so amazing to me.
Yeah, it is. And we have such great natural areas around here and all the lakes and all that really allow us to be able to soak that in each and every day, Ronnie.
So, Tyler, right now I'm sitting here, I'm trying to figure out, I want to do like a raised bed to grow like some herbs and maybe some tomatoes. And I will say, anyone who knows me, they're laughing right now because I didn't have a black thumb. But, I want it to look cute in my backyard. So I'm like, oh, what can I do that's raised? I don't want the wooden ones. So maybe some type of chic looking metal one or this, that, and the other. And then I'm sitting here going though, I have a hard enough time trying to keep the deer away from my hostas. It's just going to be like a big smorgasbord for them.
Yeah, especially if there's not a set area where you can, kind of fence off the area around those raised beds. If anything, it's making it a little more comfortable for them. I don't know the mechanics of eating as a deer, but I would think, not hunching over your neck over some plants and instead just having it right there at eye level is a little bit easier. Maybe it's not. Maybe that does prevent it, but I'm not sure. I'm no animal expert. We should ask our friends over at West Bloomfield Parks and some of the nature preserves in the local area.
Yeah, there we go. I will say, went out again this morning, saw our deer, our friendly deer out there every day. Now we're seeing it anywhere between 3 and 5. Right in the backyard. Today there were 2 and they were just walking down the trail like they were human, just like, hey, what's happening?
Yeah, we've had a couple of ducks outside of in the back of our building here at Green Media Center over the last really couple of weeks. They like to hang out in the parking lot over by the Phragmites and stuff that are in the little culvert just off of the west side of our building in the parking lot, because there's a little bit of a dip before one of the drains that just happens to be clogged and it just puddles the water right there, and they like to swim around there. So I've called them both Buck and Chuck the ducks.
Those are cute names.
Yeah, Buck and Chuck. Yeah.
So hey, the Splash is returning today?
Yes, we have very exciting. The Splash is back today. It's a special, much longer episode as we reintroduce everybody to the team and kind of talk over our work getting back into the flow of the Splash and covering the news over the course of the pandemic. So a special longer episode, just a little bit under 1 hour, and we're going to be premiering that during the second half of today's show, and then regular episodes of the Splash will, as you're used to them, will return next week.
And so with that, Tyler, it's been a while since I've seen one of the episodes. What are they typically? Just a half hour?
Yeah, it's typically a half hour, 3 stories, a couple of reoccurring segments that we do with various community partners out in the community. And it's really more centered, it's in the past been much more centered on community events and projects that are going on. And really in the interim, as we're getting back into the swing of things, one thing that I think we're going to kind of pivot to be focusing more on is how we as a community here particularly in Greater West Bloomfield, as that's our main coverage area with this program, how Greater West Bloomfield is coming out of this pandemic and how they're easing their way back into normalcy in these 4 communities. So we're going to have a little more of a focus on that, still have some of those more fun and interesting and peculiar stories out there as well along the way as we bring back Greater West Bloomfield's news magazine show.
So with that, of course, yesterday we dipped into the governor's press conference out of Grand Rapids concerning the MIOSHA's new rules and regulations. So it's a little confusing as well. And I don't think in the press conference they really addressed some of the things. So obviously, the administration announced the updates Monday to the emergency rules guiding Michigan's workplaces as the state continues its rollback of measures meant to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. So under the Michigan Occupational Safety and Health Administration's changes, employers may allow fully vaccinated workers to go without face coverings and social distancing as long as they have policies to ensure non-vaccinated people continue to follow the requirements. So the decision on how to handle the updated rules is going to be left up to the individual workplaces. So the new emergency rules, which took effect Monday, also soften cleaning requirements and do away with the industry-specific measures. The Democratic governor said it means restaurants can reopen common areas such as pool tables, as well as dance floors. Now, the new emergency rules, which Whitmer signed on Sunday, tell employers to maintain written COVID-19 preparedness and response plans. They also must require employees, except fully vaccinated individuals, to wear face coverings when they cannot consistently maintain 6 feet of social distance from others indoors. So to comply with the policies, employers can keep records of vaccination, post signs reminding workers who are not vaccinated to wear face coverings, allow remote work, or they could still require face coverings and social distancing for all workers, regardless of vaccination status. One thing this did not address, and I did go on to read the order in its entirety as well. And one thing I did not see, because as we know, when you go to a restaurant, they're supposed to be doing contact tracing, as well as when we go into work as well. And it does say in here that restaurants are supposed to continue to do that. But I will say it's been weeks since I've had a restaurant do that, other than the ones that obviously if you are going to be making reservations and they would have your name and your number. And I do know some places like the Lodge, they now have it on your check. So if you pay with a debit card or a credit card, then they would have the record as well. So still a little confusing here. And also it doesn't really address whether or not workplaces are going to have to be required to do those health screenings that we've become accustomed to.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the big question because these rules have been severely relaxed, and I think that the biggest question, particularly for workplaces, is what do we have to do in order to either document in the case of an emergency where we do need to have this information be corroborated to the state or to local health departments. What do we need to do on a daily basis? Do we need to have people sign into the building still? Do we still need to have people doing those health checks? Do we need to, or are we free to go? And then just in the case of an emergency, we need to have some determination of how many people were in the building and what we need to do in order to shut our operations down or severely change our operations into some sort of a skeleton crew in the meantime until we get the situation under control. Those things are not clear still, even after some of these clarifications and these changes and more specific orders at the state level, as really we try to see at all different levels, federal and downward, these regulations change and try to be as equal as possible to one another. There's still a lot of questions, and those questions, unfortunately, at this point are still really not being answered at any level.
Yeah, so it's still a little confusing. So
Yeah.
we'll see though as we go forward, because this is going to continue to be an issue as well as if we have more variants and we start to see an increase at
Hmm.
all. But it really, again, it's like the lack of clarity in some of these rules and regulations, and you can understand why workplaces and school districts are left to kind of figure it out for themselves.
Yeah, and even yesterday, what I was really more disappointed about at that press conference with Governor Whitmer in Grand Rapids was Governor Whitmer did an overview of these changes and regulations and kind of re-announced them. And then they had the Director of Labor and Economic Opportunity also speak at that press conference. And that really, to me, signaled, okay, well, maybe this is an opportunity they're going to take to give a little bit more clarity and a little more specific, and provide a little more specificity into these orders, particularly for for office work, as that was the big pillar of these announcements that went back into effect yesterday. And even then, minimal details, kind of just going back over the glossy summary of what was changed through MIOSHA in these recent orders, and still not a whole lot of clarity. And I think businesses across the board, whether it be general offices, whether it be restaurants or other stores and small shops, they're going to be continuing to question what can we do, and probably taking the safer route, maybe just stay course until they understand better what exactly are these changes from the MIOSHA level, from the federal level, and what do they have to do in order to keep themselves, their employees, and their customers safe in the meantime, even as we're starting to slowly emerge from the pandemic.
Yeah, you are starting to see a change in the signage throughout the area and the area businesses where it says face mask still recommended unless you're fully vaccinated, no longer required. So the changes are coming. It's just going to be slow. But I will say, I was yesterday went to a flower market and it was outdoors, but some people still had the mask on, some people didn't. Even though we were outdoors, it was still kind of weird to not put a mask on.
Yeah, definitely.
we're so trained to have them now. So, another sign though, we're starting to get back to normal. Beaumont and Michigan Medicine eased the visitor rules as the COVID-19 cases continue to decline here in the state. So with COVID-19 hospitalizations at their lowest level since mid-March, Beaumont Health and Michigan Medicine are easing visitor restrictions starting this week. So Beaumont Health is going to allow for one visitor per patient each day, regardless of vaccination status. That's starting this morning at 8 a.m. of all 12 its hospitals. Michigan Medicine said it will lift some visitor restrictions for adult patients, also allowing one visitor each day between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. That's going to be starting tomorrow. So in Michigan Medicine's emergency rooms and for clinic appointments, adults will be allowed one visitor. Keep in mind, though, COVID patients will not be allowed visitors at either hospital system except in end-of-life circumstances. Anyone visiting either hospital, though, must wear a mask covering their nose and their mouth at all times, and those who refuse will not be allowed to enter the medical campuses. So you will still need to keep the mask handy. Do not get rid of them just yet.
And that's to be expected. You're in the hospital system. They're still treating COVID patients in that hospital. They want to do their part to prevent further spread of COVID-19, even though these patients, particularly on the COVID end, are separated from everybody else. It's a precaution, and they want to be safe, and they can't ask you for your vaccination records in order to confirm that you have in fact been vaccinated. So they're taking the safer route, which is, okay, if we can't really determine one way or another if everybody is vaccinated and we're not quite at that herd immunity point, the safest thing that we've determined to do is to have everybody still be required to wear masks. The great news here is that those visitation regulations have been very much relaxed, and people can go back in and visit some of their family members in these hospital systems, which we saw go away once again in this most recent surge. And that was definitely a big concern for people that were in the hospital, as it was earlier on in the pandemic, particularly at the very beginning, where you saw a lot of these people in really bad situations not be able to have their loved ones at their bedside when they really needed that emotional support and the physical support of having somebody that they love right there with them. So having that be back, definitely going to ease a lot of people's worries in those that are in those hospitals, and is a sign of progress as we continue to move forward in beating COVID-19.
Hey, Michigan does report a 25% decline in active COVID-19 outbreaks. Michigan identified 94 new COVID-19 outbreaks last week, which marked the fewest new clusters in more than 3 months as cases continue to decline here in the state. Additionally, the state's weekly coronavirus outbreaks report indicates 798 active and ongoing clusters that had previously been reported by the Department of Health and Human Services. So that means there's a total of active outbreaks, about 892 as of Thursday. That's a decline, 24.8% from the 1,186 active outbreaks reported just 1 week earlier. So K through 12 schools continue to lead the way in new outbreaks with 34, followed by assisted living, adult care, and group home settings with 22, manufacturing and construction sites coming in the third with 14 reported new outbreaks. So keep in mind, an outbreak is generally defined as an instance in which 2 or more cases are linked by a place and time, indicating a shared exposure outside of a household. Clusters being tracked by local health departments are included in the state's online outbreak tracker, which is updated weekly on Mondays with data up to the previous Thursday. And of course, the health department is listing the schools, however, and not the businesses. And if you want to check out that tracker, you can find a link in the story. Just go to civiccentertv.com, click on coronavirus, and there you'll find the latest headlines. So it looks like things are getting better. And then just before we came on today, the news came out about Moderna is showing its vaccine has very promising results for teens, 12 to 15. So we're getting there, Tyler.
Yeah, we're moving along. We're moving along with, it seems like, a lot more progress than we were seeing in more recent weeks as the vaccinations were starting to kind of hit a lull, as we were getting to that plateau in the recent surge and starting to reduce cases after a really dire situation almost here in the state last month. And now we're in a situation where people are continuing to get vaccinated. The vaccines are becoming more available to different age groups, particularly Pfizer. Maybe now, as we're going forward, we'll see the same with Moderna. Johnson & Johnson's back on the market. Things are starting to open back up, and we're seeing some of these regulations be lifted. So it's a slow burn as we're getting back out of this pandemic, but even the smallest steps seem like big steps to everybody, because these are things that we were used to just doing without thinking before the pandemic, haven't been able to do. We've had during the pandemic, because we've been constantly thinking about how these things may or may not be dangerous for us or other people around us, and now we're getting back to it, and we appreciate these things more. And hopefully that continues on once we do get used to all these things we're able to do once again. And we continue to, after this pandemic, really appreciate more of what we're able to do each and every day with each other in our communities.
I think, the big thing that we're seeing right now, though, is the lull in how many people are getting vaccinated.
Yes.
And so now we definitely have more than enough supply of the vaccine, but people just aren't getting vaccinated at this point. And so you wonder, could we do some type of incentive program like we are seeing at other parts of the country, like Ohio with their lottery, and the possibility of winning a college tuition. And those seem to be helping some of their numbers. They've seen an increase by offering those lotteries. So it's going to be interesting to see if Michigan tries to come up with something as well. Like we have seen things on a smaller level. We know the city of Detroit is giving out those $25 gift cards, like the Good Neighbor Award, basically, if you bring someone to get vaccinated. And so, in the beginning it was, you could get a free donut, a free beer, but it's going to be interesting now that we've reached this level. Will people that weren't going to get vaccinated if there is a promise of winning something big at the end of it?
And that was something that was interesting that the governor spoke about at her press conference last week, Thursday in Midland, was that did come up, that the situation in Ohio where they have that $1 million raffle that's been considered. And she did say that that's something that's not within the law here in Michigan, but that her team and the Health and Human Services Department and other parts of our state government are considering different ways to get that interest drawn and get that incentive out there to try to get more people to go get vaccinated, as we're well along in the process, but we really have hit a point of stagnation where we're inching along now instead of making consistent progress forward and getting to that 70%. And while things are starting to open back up, it becomes a lot easier to forget about that 70% threshold, that herd immunity threshold that really is the end goal, the true end goal, that goalpost that we're going toward. And it brings up that big question of what happens if we aren't able to get there. What do we do from there to prevent a situation where variants could continue to arise and maybe beat out our vaccines?
And of course, as we just mentioned, you can always get the latest headlines at civiccentertv.com. Also want to remind you at the top of that page, we have direct links to some of the resources. So if you want to read the Michigan Health Department's Department of Health and Human Services new order, you could do so. Just go to michigan.gov, and it's right there on the top of the page. If you hit on the coronavirus news, you'll find it at the top there. With that, we have a shortened show for you today. And so with that, kind of a fun show as well. Yes. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, though, we'll be speaking with a graduate student over at Oakland University. He has some exciting things going on. And then following his interview, we'll be speaking with the executive director over at the West Bloomfield Parks Department. Some fun things going on at the Parks Department for the summer. Looks a lot different this summer. So we'll be talking about that here in the next hour on the Megacast.
Wearing a mask is more than protection. It's a bridge to better days. The path back to celebrations with family. Nights out on the town with friends. Game days with your favorite sports teams. And the thrill of live concerts. But until we can all get the COVID-19 vaccine and build community immunity, which will take time, we all need to continue to stay careful. Because Michigan's recovery is depending on you, and so are your family, friends, and neighbors. So even after you're vaccinated, wear a mask, avoid large gatherings, and social distance. One day in the near future, we will all be able to put this pandemic behind us. But until then, spread hope, not COVID. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Finally, I just got my COVID-19 vaccine.
I registered with my local health department and they called me.
I got mine at the pharmacy and my neighbor got hers from the hospital.
I'm not a techie person, so I called the COVID hotline and they helped me schedule an appointment.
Get vaccinated with the first vaccine you can. Protect us all.
Learn more at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine.
As always, it's great to have you with us here on the Megacast. Tyler and I are here Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. into noon, live, bringing you long-form interviews throughout the pandemic. The show actually started over 15 months ago now, Tyler, as a way to keep the public informed about COVID-19. You thought maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Here it is, more than a year later.
Yeah, started off in the middle of March of 2020, just a few days after the pandemic had been declared, and really a few days before the governor had issued her stay-at-home order. It started in the middle of a week in March of 2020. It's continued on through now the middle of a week here in May of 2021 and onward.
So with that, COVID-19 has definitely forced a lot of us to take a pause in life and change how we operate, but it has not stopped progress for some people. We want to bring in Dan Shiller. He's a graduate student over at Oakland University. Dan, thanks for being with us on the show.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So tell us a little bit more. How has school been for you throughout this pandemic? Let's start off there.
School has definitely been extremely different. For me, being in music, school is very much a hands-on thing, and having to be in person is really helpful. And going online, though it has presented some challenges, we have risen above it and have kind of proceeded to still have school.
So with that too, Dan, when we talk about people studying music, art, and theater, it's like you said, it's so hands-on, but even more so like music and dance too, you wonder, it's hard to do that via Zoom sometimes.
It's incredibly hard, incredibly frustrating, but we have that passion. So even with the stay-at-home orders or anything like that, we just have to do it.
So with that, tell us more about what you're studying.
So at Oakland University, I'm pursuing a master's in world percussion performance. And what that basically entails is I'm approaching music from a world perspective. So I'm not only studying classical, European music. I'm not just studying American jazz. I'm also studying music of the African diaspora throughout the Caribbean. I've studied West African music, as well as a little bit of some Asian traditions.
What made you so interested in this?
A fascination of culture and history, and seeing how that translates into art is really fascinating. Not to mention just seeing how different music can be from one country to another. Like Cuba is not even 100 miles off the coast of the United States, and the music traditions are just severely different. And that's just incredible. But they're also very similar. And that's also interesting.
So even in the middle of the pandemic, though, you just found out you've been accepted into a very prestigious program. Tell us more about that.
So the Mark Morris Dance Accompanist Training Program is a week-long program in Brooklyn, New York, where I get to go and study how to accompany dance classes as a musician with the Mark Morris Dance Company, which is a prestigious dance company in New York City.
So with that, we're talking with Dan Shiller. He's a graduate student at Oakland University. And with that, Dan, we do know New York is starting to reopen as well. Is this going to be in person?
Yes, it's going to be in person.
Going to be a little strange for you in the beginning, though?
Oh, yeah. The last time I was in New York City was pre-pandemic. So going to New York City kind of in this transition period back into normalcy is going to be interesting, to say the least.
So what was the application process like?
So I went online and just clicked the link to apply, filled out an application, sent in a resume. I think I might have sent in a demo video of me playing, and that was it. I heard back a week later saying I was accepted.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Were you jumping up and down for joy?
That's an understatement, yeah.
So with that, Dan, what do you hope to get out of attending this program?
Professional insight into this profession of dance accompanying. Throughout all of my college years, all of my professors have told me that this is a great, as an artist, it's often hard to find lucrative work, good work. But this is really something that a lot of percussionists find themselves doing, especially in their early years of their career. And that's what I'm hoping to gain from it, as well as look into the actual art of writing music for dancers and that kind of cross-collaboration between disciplines.
Dan Shiller with us here on the Megacast. And Dan, I have to ask you, at some point in time throughout the past year, did you kind of get pause and wonder about your future opportunities with the pandemic? Because we know it's hit the industry especially hard.
Yes, I have thought long and hard about that. Going into this pandemic, and it's just seeing a lot of professionals and people I look up to just stop working and kind of fearing for the future has made me kind of question some of what I do. But it goes back to that passion of I don't want to be doing anything else besides this. So despite a pandemic, despite everything, I'm going to be making music as my life. And that's what's getting me through this, is just I can't do anything else. I have to do this.
So with that, Dan, too, when you're talking about making music, we've all become somewhat experts at Zoom, but when you're talking about music, equipment plays such a big role in how your music sounds. What's it been like for you over the past year?
A lot of experimentation, trying different microphones, trying different audio interfaces, trying different placements of the microphone. Having things break, having to basically bodge things back together at a moment's notice. Or my favorite thing is right before a rehearsal or a class, all of a sudden the microphone is not working or my internet cuts out. It's just, that gets frustrating. But again, we adapt, overcome.
Yeah, I will say, before when some of these technical glitches would freak us out, now it's like, yeah, it's the pandemic, or it's happened to all of us at least a few times over the past year. But are you rehearsing in person yet at all?
Yes. I actually have a rehearsal tomorrow evening with a group, a percussion quartet I'm putting together for my recital next year.
And what was it like the first time you guys actually got together in person again?
I had to hold back the tears, to be honest. Before we started in the fall, we started in person doing stuff outside, and that was just overwhelming. But then when we had to go back into lockdown and come back out of it again around March and back in person rehearsals, it was just, it's a little overwhelming sometimes, just kind of being like, it's been a year, and I can now hang around people again without really feeling, what's the word, like unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I've started at Oakland, this is my first year at Oakland, and I haven't seen most of the people that I work with, their full face in person. And that's going to be a weird feeling when that finally happens. It's actually like see people's faces.
Right. So with that, Dan, are you from the area?
I am not. I am from Northeast Ohio.
Oh, so this has been quite the transition.
Yes, I also moved states in the middle of this pandemic, which was an experience, to say the least, but it was completely doable, and I managed it.
Dan Shiller with us here on the Megacast. He's a graduate student over at Oakland University, and he was recently just found out that he was accepted into the Mark Morris Dance Accompaniment program out of New York City. And I understand you're going to do a performance for us?
I can, yes. I have my Geo with me right next to me, and I have another camera set up, so I could easily do that.
Okay, explain to us, you have a what with you? What exactly is that?
So a Geo is an African xylophone, and it's Ghanaian in origin. And I studied abroad in Ghana a few years ago, around 2017, and fell in love with the instrument, bought one as soon as I could, and this is my personal instrument. So yeah, it's used in a lot of cultural contexts in Dogra culture, Lobi culture, Sisala culture, and those are just different ethnic groups around Ghana and Burkina Faso.
What was it like to go abroad?
Scary. It was my first time leaving the country, and I went by myself. So it was scary, and going to a country where their official language is English, but a lot of people don't speak it, is intimidating. But I'm, managed it, kind of just had to push through because that's what I needed to do, is what I wanted to do.
There you go. And you become stronger because of it. And a little bit hard because Google Translate, when you go to some of these other countries, not as accessible as you would like, right?
And the language they speak isn't on Google Translate, I believe. So I can't even use it, really.
Oh, well, if you can, go ahead and give us a quick performance, Dan, if you would.
Okay.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
Thank you.
So tell us again, how long did it take you to practice and learn that?
Give me 1 second. So it took me, well, I'm still practicing and learning it, but I started learning the instrument around 2016, went to Ghana in 2017, and it's taken me about that long to get some of those songs and learn that.
What's your favorite instrument to play?
Oh, that's hard. That is really hard. I really enjoy playing the geol, obviously, but I also really enjoy the conga drum. That's probably the top two instruments.
So I will say, Dan Shiller with us here on the Megacast. He's a graduate student over at Oakland University. And so how many different instruments can you play, Dan?
Oh, I would say I can play pretty much most of what is called for in like an orchestral setting. So, marimba, xylophone, snare drum, timpani, as well as I can play drum set. I can play congas, bongo, timbales, geol, and, cowbell, shaker, all that.
So what's it been like to try to practice some of those instruments in the middle of a shutdown? How are your neighbors?
My neighbors up in Michigan have been just great. They haven't knocked on my door, haven't done anything like that. But my neighbors back in Ohio, I would often get text or phone calls being, stop. I mean, what? I'm practicing at midnight. Come on, I have to do this.
Exactly. You can't get better without practice, right?
Right.
Dan, well, we still wish you the best of luck and thank you for the performance. Anything maybe you want to say before we let you go? What advice do you give to other people?
It's be passionate, be curious. Be passionate and be curious. Those are the two keys to success in my life. Has been passion and curiosity. Is what can I do and how can I do it?
That is such great advice, whether you're a musician or anything else that you're attempting to do in life. We wish you the best of luck. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Hey, when do you leave for New York?
I leave at the end of June.
Oh, well, safe travels and have a good time while you're there.
Thank you.
Dan Shiller with us here on the Megacast. He's a graduate student at Oakland University. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we come back, we are going to be headed outdoors. That's next here on the Megacast.
Wearing a mask is more than protection. It's a bridge to better days. The path back to celebrations with family. Nights out on the town with friends. Game days with your favorite sports teams. And the thrill of live concerts. But until we can all get the COVID-19 vaccine and build community immunity, which will take time, we all need to continue to stay careful. Because Michigan's recovery is depending on you, and so are your family, friends, and neighbors. So even after you're vaccinated, wear a mask, avoid large gatherings, and social distance. One day in the near future, we will all be able to put this pandemic behind us. But until then, spread hope, not COVID. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
I want to get back to seeing my grandbabies every Sunday and smothering them with big hugs and kisses.
I want to get back to football games with my boys.
I want to get back to feeling and touching, connecting with the people around me.
I want to get back to family dinners and my grandma's mac and cheese.
I want to get back to real grocery shopping, taking my time, walking down every aisle, smelling the tomatoes and melons, having a free sample or two, or 3.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now, there are vaccines. And they are the first step that let us get back to feeling optimistic about the days ahead of us. It's okay to have questions.
Is it safe?
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Now, get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Finally, I just got my COVID-19 vaccine.
I registered with my local health department and they called me.
I got mine at the pharmacy, and my neighbor got hers from the hospital.
I'm not a techie person, so I called the COVID hotline, and they helped me schedule an appointment.
Get vaccinated with the first vaccine you can. Protect us all.
Learn more at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine.
We want to say thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us here on the Megacast. We're here Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon. Civic Center TV, Birmingham area municipal access. You can also catch us at Channel 15 if you have Comcast 99 on AT&T, or listen to us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. And then to make it even easier, maybe you don't have a TV handy, but you're on your computer, you can catch us on our Facebook page where we are live streaming today's edition of the Megacast on our Facebook page. So thank you again for being with us. You know, for so many of us, the past year, we've relied on nature to help get us through this pandemic. It has been an extremely busy year for the West Bloomfield Parks Department team. But what's the summer going to look like compared to last summer? Jennifer Tucker joining us now on the Megacast. She's the Executive Director. Great to have you with us again.
Thanks for having me, Ronnie. As always, you both look fantastic, healthy, and you've been outside recently.
You know, I was thinking about doing the show from our outdoors. I may have to do it Friday. It's my last day here at home, just to be like, oh, one last day. But the birds are so loud in our backyard. They are partying.
Right. Yes, they're tired of this nonsense also. So they're ready to be outside, and it is nesting season. So we'll be seeing fledglings soon.
Oh, look at that. So Jennifer, if I can ask you just to kind of reflect on the past year, think about where we were this time last year compared to this year. Now, I know that it takes you weeks and months to plan some of the things. So what's going on now maybe, you know, was in the works a few weeks ago, but what's it been like for you and your team?
Well, I will tell you, as everyone, it has been a roller coaster ride, and I'm extremely lucky to just work with a top-notch team. And every day we kind of, you know, huddle and say, okay, so what's changed now? And it was definitely stressful, but you know, our programming staff came together and said, all right, well, let's redo everything that we rethink everything. And how do we get people outside and engaged? Our park staff has just been so resilient and willing to do what it takes to keep the parks clean and do it more cleaning than we've ever done, even though our standards are very high. But holy smokes, this past year has been just an absolute roller coaster.
So with that, looking forward to this summer, of course, this becomes your extremely busy season. Tell us about some of the programs and how it's going to look this year.
Yeah, so we are the doors are kind of flying open, but what we're doing right now is we're still doing some hybrid programming. We still are socially distancing for like our kids commotion, which we have one coming up on June 17th. It's at 11 a.m. And we also have one August 26th, and that's at 6 p.m. So we get both, you know, the moms and dads that work, and then, you know, the folks that actually are home with the kids. So a little bit of both. We also have put up a frame tent in our back parking lot where our employees used to park. And we are doing many of our programs out there. And so it is a safe environment. And a lot of our, like our stretch and tone is actually out right by our office windows and having a great time. But we're just trying to roll with the punches, as you will. So we are doing quite a bit of different, exercise activities. Also, our National Trails Day is coming up. We are sold out, but definitely folks should come out and find a trail near them and celebrate the day. We also have our our summer camps, their WB summer camps have sold out, and people are so anxious, but we do have some other contractual camps that still have some room if folks are interested. So we are just busting at the seams, and people just want to be out.
You know what that is? Being sold out at summer camps and some of these other events, that's parents saying, we need a break.
Right. I totally agree.
So Jennifer, if I can back you up just a little bit, let's start back with Kids Commotion. For those that aren't familiar with it, it's a concert series.
Yes, our Kids Commotion is a concert series geared toward our younger audience. And usually they, in the past, we were able to do a few more bouncers and that sort of thing. We've had to scale it back because of COVID, but you never know. You never know what'll happen tomorrow. So we are continuing that just to get our youngest participants out and about and get them some fresh air.
And so that's actually in person, though, right?
Yes, in person at Marshbank Park.
With that too, one thing we do know, it seems like as we're starting to emerge, hopefully from the pandemic, so much of the discussion now is centered around vaccination, but we know a lot of the kids that are that young, they can't be vaccinated yet. So what does that look like from the planning stages, and what can parents expect?
Yeah, so we continue to have some protocol for socially distancing. Currently, we also are under the masking, also doing masking for that group. Now I know there's some new things that are rolling out. We don't know how that's going to affect us currently, but we're going to do our best to follow every guideline and every recommendation that we are given, so to keep people safe.
I know there's been so much work over the past few years with the new lily pad springs. Where do things stand? Is construction completed, right?
Yes, so we are final stages. We are seeking our last permit, and hopefully that will be this week. And we are planning on opening June 1. Staff is hired, continuing to train and get ready and do all those details that are necessary. Wish our grass would have came in a little bit better, but all in all, we are opening this thing and give some people some joy. So we really are excited about it, and it's been 3 years in the making, and I can't say how our whole staff is so proud to be able to present this to the community, and just let's get this summer rolling. So
yeah, I think someone said before, let's bring the fun back in 21. And that is definitely, that is going to be such a huge attraction for people here in the area. So what was it like for you trying to find enough staff to hire? Because we know everyone is having a shortage right now.
Yes, we are so lucky in that we are actually now done hiring for summer. We actually have filled all our positions, and it's unprecedented. So we honestly, word of mouth and friends of friends, and we try to make it a great place to work, and so they want to bring, invite their friends to work for us also. So we've been very lucky, but yes, it is a struggle right now to find the great staff that we have.
So once the doors actually do open on the lily pad springs, will there be capacity limits, restrictions? What is it going to look like?
So actually, as of today, we're navigating any restrictions. We want to make sure that we're right on target. But currently, our capacity is at 150. So we're just making sure that is accurate. And honestly, things change literally every day this last week. So, but that's where we think we're going to be at.
That is so true, hasn't it? It's like, just when you think, it's like you have to do a flow chart. If this happens, we go this way. If this happens, we go that way. It's been quite the year. Jennifer Tucker with us here on the Megacast. She's the Executive Director for the West Bloomfield Parks Department. The native plant sale is always a popular event here. What's the latest status with that?
So that was last weekend, and boy, I tell you what, things sold out within minutes. We had an online sale, and then people had curbside pickup at Marshbank Park, and it went really well. We do miss the interaction with people. I don't know if that'll change in the future, but it is awfully convenient for people just to slide right in, pick up their plants and be on their way. So we'll see how that goes, but people really seem to enjoy it.
The funny thing is I'm sitting here looking, I'm on the website and I see it was last weekend, but I still asked about it. My calendar hasn't caught up with my head yet. So There we go. It does seem like we've been living kind of like Groundhog Day, doesn't it? Over the past whole year?
It does. It's the next 10 minutes is what I'm worried about these days.
So with that too, you talked about kids commotion. What about the Summer Park concert series? Is that going to be happening this year?
It is. I don't have those dates in front of me, but we do have those. We are having those concerts will be coming up, and you can find those on our website. It's www.wbparks.org.
And with that, Jennifer, if I can ask you, how do you anticipate that you're going to handle some of these situations where now vaccinated versus unvaccinated people? Is this something where you'll ask for a vaccination card or simply put the signage up? How's that going to work? Or you're still trying to figure it all out?
Right. So we're trying to, some of that, we're trying to figure it all out. And actually, I have a call today to try to help figure all that out. But we are trying to be patient. We understand how frustrating and hard this whole situation has been, but we also have to keep people safe. So we take that very seriously. So stay tuned.
One of the good things, so many things that you do, they are outside. And we know that, I think July 1st, then even the unvaccinated people don't have to have masks. And some of those capacity limits are going to be raised for all the outdoor events, which is has to be kind of a relief as you're trying to plan all these summer events.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. And we're the day before we have to check and make sure there was no new health orders. Just like what came out last night, we have to, regroup. Let's see how does this affect us? So it has been interesting.
Jennifer Tucker with us here on the Megacast, Executive Director for the West Bloomfield Parks Department. With that, any other programs coming up or information that you want our listeners and viewers to know?
Just come check out the Splash Park when it comes online, and we're so excited. June 1, be patient with our staff. They're all so new, and we haven't been able to see anybody to get their feet wet, if you will. We really want to have a great summer, and I hope everybody enjoys the parks and our new facility.
So how much are tickets for the park, and will people be able to buy them there, or do they need to get them online?
So we are pre-selling tickets right now on our website, and for a time slot. We have 3 time slots during the day. The first time slot is for from 11 to 1, and those are for residents only. 1:30 to 3:30, and then 4 to 6. And the tickets are $4 for resident, $6 for non-resident. And like I said, you can go online right now and purchase them. We've actually, within the first day, we saw a 20% of the revenue due for the entire year. So we know people are really excited to get outside.
And it's so nice because it's right in our backyard. Give the location again.
It's at 6200 Farmington Road. And that's actually where the old Family Aquatic Center used to be. And that is, it is the largest splash pad in Michigan.
So with that as well, Jennifer Tucker with us, Executive Director for the West Bloomfield Parks Department. Any other programs for people to know about?
We actually have are slowly opening up our Connect facility also. Those are just for pre-registered programming that is going on right now. And so not for walk-ins yet. We are trying to have a slow introduction back into normalcy, if you will. And we look forward to the day that we can just let folks in. So, but that's probably our next big opening is the Connect Senior Center. So
that'll be so great. And with that too, do you anticipate this summer is going to be just as busy as last summer for the Parks Department?
I do. You know what? We see a huge increase. Our dog park has doubled in visitation, and we have less users using it. So I think people that are staying home to work are utilizing it a lot more. So I think depends on how quickly people go actually physically back to work. It is really going to depend on our traffic patterns. So, but I think that we are going to have if this spring is any indication, we're going to have a busy summer.
That's so great. Jennifer Tucker with us here on the Megacast. We always appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you, Ronnie. It's so nice to see both of you.
Well, fingers crossed too, we have a great summer like we did last year.
I know. Yes, I agree.
Well, Jennifer, best of luck to you and your team. And again, thank you for all your hard work, especially over the past year. We know it hasn't been easy, but you've been working around the clock to still provide so many services to, the citizens, but also, the kids. You've been really a lifeline for so many parents as well as the kids, and you kept the learning going.
Well, thank you, Ronnie. We all try very hard and love what we do. So.
Well, we're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. We'll be back right after this break.
Wearing a mask is more than protection. It's a bridge to better days. The path back to celebrations with family. Nights out on the town with friends. Game days with your favorite sports teams. And the thrill of live concerts. But until we can all get the COVID-19 vaccine and build community immunity, which will take time, we all need to continue to stay careful. Because Michigan's recovery is depending on you, and so are your family, friends, and neighbors. So even after you're vaccinated, wear a mask, avoid large gatherings, and social distance. One day in the near future, we will all be able to put this pandemic behind us. But until then, spread hope, not COVID. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
I want to get back to seeing my grandbabies every Sunday and smothering them with big hugs and kisses.
I want to get back to football games with my boys.
I want to get back to feeling and touching, connecting with the people around me.
I want to get back to family dinners and my grandma's mac and cheese.
I want to get back to real grocery shopping. Taking my time, walking down every aisle, smelling the tomatoes and melons, having a free sample or two, or 3.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now, there are vaccines. And they are the first step that let us get back to feeling optimistic about the days ahead of us. It's okay to have questions.
Is it safe?
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Now, get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Finally, I just got my COVID-19 vaccine.
I registered with my local health department and they called me.
I got mine at the pharmacy, and my neighbor got hers from the hospital.
I'm not a techie person, so I called the COVID hotline, and they helped me schedule an appointment.
Get vaccinated with the first vaccine you can. Protect us all.
Learn more at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine.
Quitting smoking can improve your health, but it also protects your loved ones from secondhand smoke. Did you know there's no risk-free level of exposure to secondhand smoke? Smoke from cigarettes, e-cigs, and hookah can travel through ventilation systems and harm those around you. So clear the air and stop secondhand smoke. Call the Michigan Tobacco Quit Line at 1-800-784-8669. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Time out of your day to be with us. As a reminder, you're listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. We have a little bit of a special show for you today, in the fact that we are bringing back The Splash. They've been working hard to get this episode up and running, right, Tyler?
Yeah, we began production on this episode really as things started to open. We're announced to be starting to open up just last week. Got a new team in here with our intern for the summer of 2021, Daniel Zivian, who you'll be introduced to in this episode we have upcoming. And then Erica Jones is back on our team again for this summer. She'll be leading the charge on The Splash. And then our Zoom producer for this program, Larry Nyland, also was featured in a story. And you and I had a nice conversation last week about the changes in news and the impact of programming much like ours here on the Oakland County Megacast, and how that's impacted the community over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic.
So Tyler, for those that maybe aren't familiar with The Splash, tell them a little bit more about the programming. How is it different than what we're doing?
Yeah, The Splash tends to be more of a lighter version of what you would typically see in a news magazine. It's very much about the positive and the uplifting that's going on in our community. A lot of focus on community events, special projects, interesting people that are doing interesting things around the Greater West Bloomfield community. It typically hasn't been anything that's much like a traditional news program that's all that hard-hitting, or even a news magazine show like you'd see in the situation of a CBS Sunday Morning, where they will sometimes touch on touchier subjects. In this case, it's more about very positive, very interesting community aspects that are going on in the Greater West Bloomfield area. As we come back into The Splash, I think we're going to have to take a little bit of a different turn there, just to really show how the community is coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic and how we're easing back into things together. But still, it's going to be a much lighter version of what we typically are seeing in a traditional news magazine or news show. That's what really makes it differ from the Oakland County Megacast, whereas this show, we get long-form interviews about in some cases, very hard-hitting topics and very tough topics to speak on, whereas The Splash tends to be a lot lighter.
Well, and the other good thing about The Splash is they're able to incorporate video and more sound and different people into their stories as well. So it goes back to the roots of storytelling.
Yeah, it does. It is very much visual storytelling. We get out, we talk to people on site at these events, at where these projects are going on, to those experts that are in charge of it, and also to people in the community that are affected by these things, that have these experiences that are special with their family, capturing those moments as they happen, and those that are working on these special projects, getting a better understanding of why they're doing it and seeing the work that they're doing in action as it's going on. And it makes The Splash really special for us here in the Greater West Bloomfield community.
So with that as well, how do you pick and choose which stories and the people to highlight?
A lot of it is in collaboration with our community partners. We're constantly looking at how they are helping get the community engaged and get the community communicating with one another, and then keeping up with different news outlets in the local area as well. If we see a story that pops up about somebody that's working on a special project in Greater West Bloomfield, we will go out to them. We scour, of course, the Facebook groups such for the city of Keiko Harbor and city of Sylvan Lake, West Bloomfield as well. And that also helps as we learn about special projects and interesting people that are doing really nice things for their neighbors here in the community. And that's really how we're looking for those stories. We want to find things with The Splash that are very positive and uplifting, that give people something to turn to for some positive news when we're in a constant barrage, it seems, at times, of the negative and the bad that's going on in our community and around the world.
So I would imagine too, if someone has an event they want to have covered or someone they want to highlight, let us know. That's what makes us a community, but just reach out, let us know.
Yes, absolutely. We do have on our website, and I will pull that up right now here for a visual for those of you that are watching on Civic Center TV and on civiccentertv.com. On our homepage, at the top right, just under our Watch Live player on our homepage, you are able to click on this link here under Suggestion Box, and that's one way that you can communicate with us. You can also send an email to tyler@civiccentertv.com, and that's another way that you'll be able to send any suggestions about projects that you or someone you know in West Bloomfield, Keagle Harbor, Sylvan Lake, or Orchard Lake are working on, interesting events that you think would be great for us to cover in your community, and special projects or people that are just doing good things for one another in their community. We do a segment every week called Person of the Week, where we highlight somebody in the community that is going out of their way to help other people and isn't necessarily doing it for the recognition. They're doing it out of the goodness of their heart, and we want to recognize that.
And so with that, today, I know that you're going to start the program. What can people expect on today's show?
They can expect to see a little bit of information about what people are thinking right now in the community as we're coming down from these mask mandates, as things start to open back up. How some of our community organizations, one of those in particular, West Bloomfield Parks, is approaching restarting their events and their planning as they try to help people in the community get back to socializing with one another and becoming that close-knit community. And then looking back also on the pandemic, what we did here and how the pandemic impacted what we believed was our role in the community to keep everybody informed, and how we kept some of the pillars of the Greater West Bloomfield community, those events that we do to celebrate one another, intact over the course of the pandemic.
So with that, do you want to get the show started?
Yes, yeah, we can do that, Ronnie. We'll take a quick break, and then we will come back with the first episode of the Splash, Greater West Bloomfield's news magazine show in over a year. It's been since March 24th of 2020 since we've had a new episode air of the Splash, and that will be coming up next. You're watching and listening to a special edition of the Oakland County Megacast and the Splash on 89.3 Lakes FM and lakesfm.com.
COVID-19 has caused many families to fall behind on finances and on groceries. But you're not alone. You shouldn't have to worry about putting food on the table. My Bridges offers access to quality food and income assistance to help families across the state get the food support they need. It's easy to apply and easy to start shopping. Apply for services at michigan.gov/MIBridges. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
I want to get back to seeing my grandbabies every Sunday and smothering them with big hugs and kisses.
I want to get back to football games with my boys.
I want to get back to feeling and touching, connecting with the people around me.
I want to get back to family dinners and my grandma's mac and cheese.
I want to get back to real grocery shopping. Taking my time, walking down every aisle, smelling the tomatoes and melons, having a free sample or two, or 3.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now, there are vaccines. And they are the first step that let us get back to feeling optimistic about the days ahead of us. It's okay to have questions.
Is it safe?
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Now, get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too.
Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and experiences connect through conversation, and it feels good.
This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope, too.
Take a step toward bringing our country and your community together. Start a conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.
And now, a special edition of Greater West Bloomfield's news magazine show, The Splash, our first episode in well over a year here on the Oakland County Megacast. The Splash begins now. This week, on a special edition of The Splash, we reflect on reporting the news during the pandemic, keeping the community together in times of crisis, and take a look at the present and the future as we exit the pandemic. The Splash is a production of Civic Center TV. We're a news magazine that covers everything from local news to feature stories, all so that we can bring you the latest from the Greater West Bloomfield area. And now, let's dive into The Splash.
Welcome to this special edition of The Splash. I'm Brooke Allen. On March 24th, 2020, we aired episode 179 of The Splash just after the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Shortly after, the Greater West Bloomfield Cable Communications Commission, as well as Civic Center TV management, decided to suspend production of the show out of an abundance of caution, changing the way that Civic Center TV informed the community forever. And today, just over a year later, we have returned to regular production of Greater West Bloomfield's news magazine show on the dawning of a new time in our society as masks begin to come off, businesses begin to reopen at greater capacity, and vaccinations continue to be administered. And life as we once knew it becomes life as we will know it going forward. So let's get started. I am joined by Civic Center TV Associate General Manager and on-air personality, Tyler Keefe. And Tyler, this has been a long time coming, huh?
Yeah, it has. It's been well over a year. It's been a really tough year and an interesting year here as we had to quickly transition from what we were doing before, which was normally just, of course, this news magazine show, The Splash, that we're currently doing, where we'd go out in the community and we'd interview people about a variety of different topics, whether it be some event that they're doing, some project that they're working on, or so on or so forth. Now, all of a sudden, we can't do that because that's such an interactive project. And, of course, we can't be within 6 feet of each other without masks on. And even then, we want to limit that to something that's absolutely necessary. And so for us, it took what really was a major change in our operation over here in order to keep our business going, but also do our due diligence and our duty to the community to keep them informed at a time where there's so much information being thrown around and everyone's not entirely sure what is right and what is wrong.
Right. But out of that, the Megacast was born.
Yeah, the Megacast, it actually came together pretty quickly because we had been talking as things were starting to go toward the way of this is looking like it's going to be global. This is looking like it's going to be a major thing that's going to shut a lot of things down, and we have to be able to make an adjustment. So Dave Scott, Jake Kustash, our Splash producer at the time, the Cable Commission, Dave Alberry, the Executive Director of the Cable Commission, and I were all having constant conversations about, well, what can we do? And it really came together over one single weekend where we had a big meeting over the phone, and it was Dave Scott, myself, Larry Nyland was on it, our Zoom producer for the Megacast, and live event producer, virtual event producer here at Civic Center TV, Ken Cooper, our Director of Production over at Motown Digital. We were all having a conversation about, okay, we're going to start this show. We're going to be interviewing people virtually from our radio studio. We're going to set some cameras up in our current radio studio at the time and basically do some simulcast and also put that on the internet with community partners via Facebook Live, via our web streams, and really push this information out to as many people as we can with as many people as we can over a 2-hour span. And then really over that next weekend and the first couple of days of that first week, we were mobilizing to get everything ready, whether it be graphics and music, lighting and the cameras in the radio studio, making sure we could control that from multiple locations, getting people booked on the show. And really after the pandemic was declared, really on that day, we were doing the State of the Communities at that time. Really at that point, that's where we were mobilizing to get the Megacast ready, and by midweek, the next week over, we were going.
And I mean, it continues to this day, and I mean, it has been such great information that has come out of there, and you've had some great guests, so looking back now, and even though the Megacast is going to continue, but looking back, how do you perceive from the beginning of that to where we are at this moment?
I think right now it's just as important really as it was when we began, because there was so much information at the beginning and a lot to process, and who's right, who's wrong, what are good sources versus bad sources, and really who should I believe. Now as we're coming out of this, I think our duty then transitions to how do we help people navigate all the information that they're going to have here as we're coming out of this pandemic, but also what they should be confident about, or maybe be a little more worrisome about, or really be considering what information do they need to make strong decisions for themselves, for their families, for their friends, and everybody else involved in their life in order to gradually exit this pandemic and do so safely, but also get back to regular life. Because
wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, because regular life really isn't going to be the same thing that it was before this pandemic, and we're all really going to be figuring out what that looks like together. And I think that's really what the Megacast is going to be about over the next several months, and maybe all the way through to a year plus, as we're getting back into whatever regular life looks like after COVID-19. It's going to be helping each other figure that out, finding that new information, gradually getting ourselves back there and trying to inch everybody's confidence along until a point where we are no longer concerned about wearing masks around each other, or if we're spreading a virus that could potentially be deadly to one another, because we've reached herd immunity here in the U.S. and we've reached herd immunity throughout the world, even on a bigger scale. And maybe someday soon we'll be at a point where COVID-19 will be finally an afterthought.
That's an amazing thought to even think of, right? I mean, but we didn't even know that we would be at this point, right? I mean, it seemed like it was never going to come. And like you mentioned, the vaccines, people actually returning back to offices now, which is interesting because the questions actually don't seem to stop, right? And the confidence level, even going to the grocery store, I mean, you and I have talked about it as far as that goes. So just the shopping in general, just questions that people are going to have. And even into the fall, when kids go back to school full time in person, the questions are always going to be there. So it's really great that you're here answering those questions and helping out the community.
And what's even better is it's not us that's doing it. We're not looking into the camera and saying, this is what the information is, this is what you need to know, this is what you should be thinking on this. We're bringing people in that have a variety of opinions, that have a variety of experiences, and getting their point of view and getting their expert information in many cases about all of this that's happening around us. We're talking to experts in the medical community, like Dr. Russell Faust from Oakland County Health Division, like Eric Wallace and company from Henry Ford West Bloomfield Hospital, to get more of the medical side of this. This is where we're at right now with COVID-19. This is why A, B, and C is being declared and why these rules are no longer entirely necessary, maybe. We're getting government officials to get their understanding of why they've changed some of these rules along the way, and then talking to regular people as well that are business owners, that are working on the front lines, and getting their perspectives too, so that when people are going out and saying, well, why do we still have people that are adamant about wearing masks despite the mask orders being down, we understand that some people are doing that just simply out of respect for other people, not knowing how concerned other people may be, not knowing how concerned these people on the front lines may be that maybe are not required to wear masks anymore, but maybe aren't entirely comfortable with that situation, but are still going into that situation because they need to work.
Exactly. So I've asked everyone this. I'll ask you, if you know what's coming, what is the one thing you've learned through all of this?
You got to constantly be on your toes and be ready for the next challenge. I think that's something that everybody's learned in some capacity throughout the pandemic, is you don't know when the next crisis is going to come, and you got to just be ready to address it when it's there. You're not going to know what it's going to look like, what it's going to be about, how tough it's going to be to get through, but if you're ready and you're creative and you're willing to lean on other people also along the way to help them out, but also reach out to them to help you out along the way, you can make some great things happen if you put a team together and work at these problems to find creative solutions to complex problems.
Yeah, if there ever was the term thinking outside the box, this pandemic has made all of us think it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. So this week, actually, Tyler and fellow Megacast host Ronnie Dahl spoke together following one of their shows about the role of storytelling during these ever uncertain times of the pandemic, and also the uniqueness of getting a deeper look at life during the pandemic from those most affected by the crisis.
Ronnie, over the last 14 months, we've been doing this Megacast program here on Civic Center TV and on 89.3 Lakes FM, as well as a number of our partnering stations. And it's really been a change for us in how we cover news in the local area, but it's also kind of showing that new pace of how news is being covered altogether and in general, as we are able to speak to guests in great details about information that is pertinent to them and important to them in times of crisis, and just interesting things going on in the community. In your case, Ronnie, you came into this program about halfway through our run on TV, and having had a long career already in journalism where you've been out in the trenches, you've been speaking to people, you've been holding truth to power, what attracted you coming into this program to be able to do a show like this each and every day for 2 hours, talking to people at length about important things in our community?
Well, as a reporter, when you're out in the field, Tyler, we often have these conversations, but anyone in the public, that's not what you see. You may get what we call in the business a soundbite, and a soundbite is just a snippet of that interview, which might be 10, 20 seconds long. And you've had a 20, 25-minute conversation with the individual. For them to only get their message and that quick soundbite out to the public. So this is so different in the fact that we are able to have these conversations that we know other journalists are having. They're just not public. So I think that a lot of our guests appreciate it as well, because one of the things that's been so important, we are still in a pandemic, and this information is changing and changing rapidly. And so to be able to have these conversations at length with so many important people, then anyone from the general public, they can go ahead and listen in. And I think that is a huge value to them, and not just in a pandemic. I really think it's important as we go forward as well.
Yeah, it really is. And having been out in the community as a reporter for Channel 7, for Channel 2, and other markets throughout the U.S. Before that, you had been talking to these people, you've been putting these stories together. And when you're out in the field in that setting, Ronnie, as a journalist, as a reporter on television or in other mediums, what is your focus going into that story, and how does, in the story in that medium, and how does that translate to what we're getting additionally here doing a show like the Megacast?
Well, when you're actually, and I'm going to talk for TV, so it's different for print, we know, or for radio as well. But when you're approaching a story, it's not just about the interview and the information, but you're also so focused on the visual element. And so sometimes, your information, you have important information, but maybe you don't have a visual element to support that information, so that piece will be left out of the story. And if we heard it once, you heard it 1,000 times. Every broadcast journalist knows this. When you get back and the piece airs, and at most, sometimes you only get a minute. Sometimes you get a minute and a half. 2 minutes is almost unheard of in a TV broadcast segment. And one of the biggest things you get as you interview people, wow, that was quick. All that time that we talked, and only that small portion made it on air. Now, I will say social media is starting to change that as well. And we know that while in the typical broadcast, they can't play the entire interview, we do know that as social media has started to change over the years, some members of the media, they're becoming a little bit more social media savvy, and they are able to put the extended version of an interview maybe on their own personal Facebook page. But I guarantee it's not going to be the full interview. It may be 3 or 4 minutes or 7 minutes. It's not going to be that consistent 15, 20-minute interview, and to post it each and every day as well.
Yeah, and one of the big purposes of having news is not only to keep people informed, and of course to speak truth to power, but to lead people in a direction so that they can gather more information and make informed decisions. And especially during this pandemic, where we've had a massive information coming in from all different directions because of the technology we have access to, because of the number of people that are out reporting in various mediums. There was a lot to juggle for people throughout this pandemic, and there's still going to be situations like that going forward. So having the ability to have information from experts in the field, from people that are on the front lines of one crisis versus another, is so vital to be able to provide to people, and can really be helpful in addition to what we can get from traditional news, getting the very basics of the story, the most important points. Do you see this as being the future of journalism beyond what we see in traditional television and radio news reporting, as we've seen the rise of podcasts and other forms of other longer forms of investigative journalism and general journalism in recent years?
I think the future of journalism is going to be very interesting, because we do know that we are losing so many investigative reporters due to various situations in the media industry, because, really you only have a few corporations that control most of the media outlets. throughout the entire country. And so we do see that a lot of reporters are starting to leave the industry and trying to come up with other ways to be able to tell those stories and get that information out. Perfect example of that is Charlie LaDuff. Yeah. And, he left mainstream media, but he has found success on the platform. He uses Facebook as well as his podcast, the No BS News Hour, and he's still breaking news. He breaks news, and I will say that, a lot of the journalists will follow him and follow up on his stories because he has so many sources. But I've even seen that here with us on Civic Center TV with some of the interviews that we've done as well. You'll see some of the topics that we covered be picked up by the mainstream media maybe that day or a day or two later as well, because that is one thing that you'll find, a lot of times as a broadcast journalist reporter, deadlines are crazy insane. So sometimes you have to be so quick with some of these interviews that you don't have time to keep the individual talking. Especially with some of our politicians. And so to keep them talking, then they are able to add other nuggets to that conversation that maybe you wouldn't have had as a mainstream media person. So I do think the industry is going to be changing, and let's hope that we're going to see more of this long form talk type journalism start to develop independently, but also, other companies as well. They'll see some value in it, because I will say, I think a lot of the people that we have had on the show, they expressed their appreciation for us doing the show. And, and not just our elected leaders, not just our politicians, but also a lot of the business owners. Throughout this pandemic, one of the goals was, how are they surviving? What are they up against? And also, maybe helping out another business because they were able to share some of the, tricks and tips that they've changed throughout the pandemic that's helped them along. So it's really about bringing the community together. And let's hope that coming out of the post COVID-19 craziness, if we ever get there, Tyler, that some of this sense of community and long form journalism sticks around.
So as we go forward and as journalism goes forward, I'm just some TV and radio producer guy. I'm not a journalist, but being able to see the impact that a show like this has had on regular people in the community, on informing people in the community, it does cover what really are the pillars of the noble profession of journalism, which is to be able to provide important information to the public, to speak truth to power, and one of the more important ones, or most important, I would say, at least from what I have experienced doing this show, is providing voice to the voiceless and letting people know about how it really does, how something like this crisis really does impact people who are working on the front lines, people who are running businesses, small businesses, and keeping our neighbors, our friends, our family employed, and being able to tell their stories in detail so that people really understand the human element of the pandemic, but more importantly, in a general sense, the human impact of the news. Ronnie, anything else that we haven't touched on that you would like to say about what we've been doing here at the Oakland County Megacast and why something like this may be important to the community?
I just really hope that it continues and having the conversation continues as well. I think, again, like you said, Tyler, it's been so important for the people that live here. I just think about like the schools, right? The changes in the schools. And we've been able to definitely reach out in depth to so many of the superintendents. And it's vital information. And as we all emerge from this pandemic, we have to remember there's going to be a lot of changes going forward. And so let's hope the show continues as well.
Absolutely. And you can join Ronnie and I each and every day, Monday through Friday, live, 10 a.m. to 12 noon, right here on the Oakland County Megacast. So as you enjoy what's going on around Orchard Lake, Sylvan Lake, Kego Harbor, and of course, West Bloomfield on the Splash each and every Tuesday, you can join Ronnie and I in the mornings for more details and more of that important information as we continue to bring you news on the COVID-19 pandemic and so much more in the greater Oakland County area.
You can find more information about the Megacast on our website at civiccentertv.com/megacast. Well, in the age of social distancing and capacity limits, one of the elements of what makes our community so close, in-person events and celebrations, it was simply not safe. Yet our community persevered and with some creativity ensured that while we did what we had to do to protect ourselves, we did not forget to honor and cherish others. And I'm joined now by Civic Center TV producer Larry Nyland, who has had the unique task of producing the ceremonies and celebrations that have become traditions in Greater West Bloomfield virtually during the pandemic. And Larry, it's so nice to see you in person.
You as well. Yes, it's been a while.
It has been a while, although we did see each other on Zoom a few times. But yes. So how has this been for you?
Well, I mean, when you think about the events that we normally produce here, it usually is something where our prep time is just kind of going to a location, like going to a country club, setting it up, and then we shoot it, and in 2 hours, we're done. Well, this new world that we're living in has created a situation where there is a lot of preparation. So literally Michigan Week, which we just aired last week, we probably started the preparation for that back in March. And it's just been a long thing of just, recording videos, recording acceptances, recording presenters and things like that. But it does give us the opportunity to get it as perfect as we can get it, which sometimes you can't get when you're doing it live and in person. So it is a lot of work, but I think it does help produce a good product.
So are you feeling that Zoom fatigue we've been talking about for so long?
I am Zoom fatigued because I am on a lot of Zoom meetings and I'm also producing a lot of Zoom meetings for the Megacast. I am the person in charge of getting all the guests into that Zoom meeting, getting through the show, getting things like that, getting everything perfect for that. So yes, I am zoomed out.
Well, good news. Things are slowly getting back to normal, right? And I mean, obviously we're here doing the splash, so things are almost there. But tell me, what's the one thing that really has struck you or what you've learned during this pandemic?
What have I learned during this pandemic? Well, one thing I was thinking about right now, am I moving my head too much? The reason I'm asking that question is because I just listened to an interview with George Clooney, and he was talking about when he was on ER that one of the executive producers of that show was Steven Spielberg. And Steven Spielberg came up to him and looked at where they were looking at dailies, and he said, George, if you would just stop moving your head so much, you will be a movie star.
Really?
So I just want to make sure that I am not moving my head too much because I don't want that to be the only thing that's getting in the way of me being a movie star. But no, okay.
I think you're good. I think you're good. So tell me what I mean. Besides the Zoom fatigue, and now we're transitioning back, right? So how do you think that's going to go?
Well, I mean, it is one of those strange things where, like, when you are. Even ourselves here, we are 6 feet apart. We've both been, if I can,
yes, that's fine.
I can reveal, we've both been vaccinated. So you feel comfortable about that. But sometimes you still wonder, is the person you're talking to, is the person you're close to, are they vaccinated and things like that? Is it still safe? Like, it's hard to mentally get out of the 18 months or however long it's been of wearing masks and avoiding people. Right, I mean, I seemed like I probably went back maybe 3 years of avoiding people, not wearing the mask.
Right. So, I mean, you have kept the celebrations going, I mean, everything that we would normally do in person, like you mentioned, you got it all done. So, I mean, it was very impressive and, you're just always so there, and I appreciate that from my standpoint. You always put up with my text messages late at night.
Yes.
So thank you for that. So I appreciate that.
Well, I think a part of it was I think I forgot to send you the script for Michigan Week until the day before you were actually supposed to be recording your parts. So
right.
That was my problem as well.
Well, and that was okay. We got through it, right?
Yes, it went very well.
Okay, so Larry has taken a look back at this week at how Greater West Bloomfield did not let the COVID-19 pandemic halt its many traditions that celebrate the good in our community.
Always a mainstay of life in the Greater West Bloomfield area are the community events that bring its citizens together. And of course, over the past 15 or so months, these events have had to pivot in order to survive. To bring us insight into this topic, I spoke with perhaps the queen of West Bloomfield's community events, Deb Macon, who just wrapped up chairing the 49th Annual Michigan Week Awards.
Well, the first thing we did is determine that nothing was going to stand in our way of delivering the best we could to recognize volunteers in Greater West Bloomfield. So it then became, what are our options? How can we still do this? And of course, our partnerships came to mind. We've always connected with our partners at Civic Center TV. And when we put our heads together, magic happened.
In addition to her role with the Michigan Week Awards, Deb is also a very active member of the Greater West Bloomfield Cable Commission and works as a consultant and trainer. And she has realized through these duties that at least partial virtual workflow is not going to go away.
On occasion, we'll have a member who, for some reason, cannot be in town. And we do have a colleague who's going to be out of town on an extended absence. And he's going to be able to participate because it's our practice to identify, here is where we're signing in from. So the opportunity to connect in focused ways is helpful. Something that the Cable Commission did, we created a work group where we commit to a real intense 1 hour and, frequent connections for a specific amount of time have really served us well. So I'm thinking that that's something that we'll want to carry forward.
Deb stresses that one thing that has become vitally essential in this virtual learning world we've been using recently is active engagement on everyone's part.
What has changed is the definition of engagement. This is no longer a world of sit and get. People must be actively engaged, and there are ways to do that. And the rule of thumb is to have a way to actively engage the audience every 5 to 10 minutes in some way that's going to make us think a little differently, ask a probing question. So those are all real techniques that, once learned and practiced, give you an opportunity to bring more people into the conversation and the learning.
And Deb has learned one last vital lesson doing things virtually that needs to stay with us all moving forward.
Take the risk of learning more. Take the risk of asking more questions of more people. Our brain is constantly changing, and we have resources right here within our community that can help us make those transitions so that we stay fully functioning and fully engaged. It's a grand community. Let's contribute to it and take full advantage of it as well.
Reporting for The Splash, I'm Lawrence Nyland.
For more, you can visit civiccentertv.com/traditions. Later in the show, we get local businesses and your thoughts on the relaxation of COVID-19 rules and restrictions. And this special edition of The Splash returns after this quick break.
Don't go away. You're watching The Splash on Civic Center TV.
I'll be seeing you in all of our favorite places with laughter and warm embraces all day through. The park where we play, the stoop across the way, that favorite cookie smell, and Big Bird's tree we love so well. I'll be seeing you. I'll be seeing you.
I love you too. With free COVID-19 vaccines, sunnier days are ahead. Visit getvaccineanswers.org.
I'll be seeing you.
Can I ask you a question? Why did you get your kids vaccinated?
It was hard for them to social distance, to be isolated from their friends.
I want them to get back to school and sports games. So as a pediatrician, I recommend the vaccine to everyone I know.
The boys lost a former teammate and classmate who was only 20 years old. It's been a devastating year.
We want to get back to normalcy. Our daughter is really looking forward to being with her friends, being a kid.
And now, back to The Splash on Civic Center TV.
Welcome back to this special edition of The Splash on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. I'm Brooke Allen. So when COVID-19 went worldwide, our schools went from brick and mortar buildings to cyberspace, changing the way that students of all ages got their education. And I'm joined now by Civic Center TV reporter and University of Miami student Erica Jones. And Erica, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Brooke. It's good to be here.
It is so nice to be back face to face, right? We're not on Zoom, so that's a good thing. So let's first start about your experience as being a student during this pandemic. How has that been?
Honestly, I'm so thankful for the opportunity that I've been able to be in person. A lot of universities haven't been able to do that. I go to a more medium-sized school. There's about 10, 12,000 undergrads, so I've gotten the opportunity to have most, if not all of my classes in person, socially distanced with masks on. And I want to sit here and tell you that it's been really rough, but then I do realize how lucky I am. So I have gotten hands-on experience. I've been able to be in the studio, work with camera equipment, go out, shoot live stories. A lot of Zoom interviews still going on, but it's been good. Could be worse. A lot of counting my blessings these days.
So, you know, it's interesting because, I mean, here we are in this business and so much has changed. So what is the biggest thing that you've learned through this?
I think there's two big things. One is be thankful for what you have. Like I said, I could sit here and think about how hard things have been and how I wish things were different, but you know someone always has it worse. And I'm so fortunate to be in the situation that I'm in, and I really think this has made me so much more thankful, and I realize that I'm in a position where I really can't ever complain about anything. And the other thing is just take advantage of your time. I'm again, so lucky to have the opportunity to be working here and have all this hands-on experience where I know so many people my age don't have local TV stations near them and they don't have the opportunity to get this hands-on experience, and they're working remotely, which is great. But for someone like me, I'm a very hands-on person. I'm so thankful to have the opportunity to work in person, actually be able to come into the studio every day. So those two things, definitely just take advantage of your resources. And this time off too. I was home from school for 5-6 months, and I really took that time to try and start developing a platform for myself, which is something I'm still doing, and really a lot of personal growth and development where you could have easily spent those 6 months doing nothing. So I just think this time has been a lot of what you've chosen to make it, and everyone has handled it differently. But for me, definitely just take advantage of your time, take advantage of your resources. And again, these are candid answers. Didn't prepare all this, but off the top of my head, those are the biggest things I would say that I've taken out of this.
So an interesting perspective as far as, you know, you said you were home for 5 to 6 months. I mean, obviously you're used to living away, right? So how was it for you to be back with your family and back in the area for so long?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. I think about this all the time. I think that once you move away and you're living on your own, coming back is the hardest thing. And you expect summers you'll be home, but it's the basic things like no one when I'm up in Miami is there to tell me when dinner time is, or to clean the table, do my dishes, when
do your chores,
do my chores, when I need to be quiet at night. And obviously it's not like I have a set bedtime anymore, but it's still after a certain time of night, I have to be quiet, even if I'm on FaceTime with someone. Parents are trying to sleep down the hall. So it's definitely a huge adjustment going from being able to do what I want when I want to having a schedule, family dinners, certain activities. I can't just make whatever plans I want, because then my mom says to me, oh, Erica, I made these plans for us. And it's just very different. So I think that it's so hard for anyone once you do live away from home to then be back at home. As much as I love being with my family, and I know I'm closer with my family and my parents than most people I know, so I can't imagine what it's like for people that don't have that same bond with their family. It's probably even harder to then have to be reemerged in that environment.
So speaking of coming back, you are back. You're back for the summer now, and you're going to be with us on The Splash. You are going to be the producer, right?
Yes.
So that's exciting. Tell us what your plans are.
Right. So I actually recently found out that I was getting the opportunity to host The Splash this summer. And for me, that's really cool because my passion is being on air. I always want to be in front of the camera. And in school and just in a lot of places, you sometimes have to pick one or the other. It's always good to know how to produce, but at the same time, it is sometimes hard to be producing and being on camera. So when I have the choice of one or the other, I'm always going to choose to be on camera. But I have always wanted to have the opportunity to produce. So being here and now getting to produce this show is an experience that I probably would not have gotten anywhere else. I know up at school, when I'm in Miami, I don't do any producing with our shows there just because you can't always do both, like I said. So I'm really excited about doing that. Starting in the next episode is when I'll really be producing. So I really want to, I don't know, you caught me off guard with what do I have planned, because not too much yet, but just a lot of organizational, administrative things I've started with, and just really kind of making sure that our pieces are very strong, maybe even taking a little bit of a different approach than we had before the pandemic, because it's a new time, it's a new world post-pandemic, so there's going to be a lot of what we have seen before, the things we knew and loved from the Splash, but definitely pivoting a little bit as the rest of the world has seen. And we'll see that even this week with the stories we've done. It's going to be a little bit different looking than the stories we've seen in the past.
Well, and it's so interesting because you have to go with what's happening in the world. That's what we're all about, right? So it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out. I mean, it seems like we are at the light. We're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So it's very exciting. Even for us to be in the same studio together, right, is huge. So it's great to have you back. So we're so glad you're here. So thank you so much. And this week, Erica actually went out to the community to speak to local businesses, visitors, and residents to get their thoughts on the relaxation of COVID-19 regulations.
Finally, an end to the COVID-19 pandemic is in sight. It's no secret that local businesses were hit hard in the heat of it all, but they're not so quick to go back to what we knew as normal. Clothing store Guys and Gals at the Orchard Mall implemented many new ways to serve customers, which will actually continue in a post-pandemic world.
Not just at Guys and Gals, I don't think anywhere we're ever going back to what we were like before a pandemic. We DM customers all the time, FaceTime customers all the time. We did curbside, we did deliveries. The website actually started post-COVID. We have customers all over the country now. As long as we can accommodate our customers, we're happy to keep doing it. And we still bring stuff out to our customers. We still FaceTime our customers who aren't as comfortable, meet people here on a Sunday.
As restrictions are being lifted nationwide, you may be excited to spend a maskless Saturday at the mall, but you better keep one in your back pocket or some stores still won't let you in.
For the safety of our employees and our customers, which has been our decision-making process the whole time, we are still doing masks only, and nobody's really fought us on it. In fact, when we posted that and sent our email, people thanked us. It's going to take people a long time to be comfortable doing things. Everyone has a different comfort level, and I think that's what people have learned a lot about people through this whole thing.
So we know Guys and Gals is still erring on the side of caution, but not all places are. If I walk into Starbucks over here, no one's gonna tell me I need to keep this thing on. But where do you stand? Are you comfortable going in public without a mask on?
Yes, because I am fully vaccinated.
My comfort level is very, very high. I've been vaccinated since December.
So I continue to wear a mask when I go into establishments, restaurants, stores, and things of that nature, and only really take it off when I'm interacting, conversing with someone individually.
Outside, like walking where I'm going now on the trail, I won't wear a mask. But inside, I always wear a mask.
I always carry my mask with me, just in case. Pretty much I feel comfortable now.
I just think that any precautions we can take for health and safety of others or ourselves are things that I'm willing to do.
Mostly I work outside, so that is the best, safest place to interact with people. However, because other people are uncomfortable, I will mask up for their comfort.
I go in places that don't have masks, like Costco doesn't. People don't have to wear masks, and they take their word for it that they've been vaccinated.
It's really hard to regulate, and you have to just hope that people are on the honor system.
Just remember that even if you feel comfortable without a mask on, the person next to you might not. And businesses aren't necessarily going to tell us what to do anymore. It's now up to you and me to keep each other safe. Reporting for The Splash, I'm Erica Jones.
To know more, you can visit civiccentertv.com/masks. Well, joining me now in the studio is the newest member of our team, Daniel Zivian. Daniel just completed his sophomore year at Michigan State University as a journalism student and is now joining our team as an intern for the summer of 2021. And Daniel, nice to see you again. We had just realized shortly that our paths have actually crossed before.
Yes, it's pretty amazing. I shadowed you at WWJ. I was standing right behind you while you, in the studio, were doing the midday news.
Right.
That was a pretty amazing experience. And then suddenly,
here we are.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see you again. So we spoke to Erica about her experience as a student during the pandemic. Your experience has been a little bit different because you have not been at school since this started.
No, I have not. I have lived since March 2020 at the house I grew up in with my parents and my little brother. Every night is family dinner night. It is a special kind of world to live in. And we all, and we've really run the gamut. We got sick of each other. We like each other again. We get sick of each other again. And as for school, that means it's all been virtual for me on online platforms, Zoom lectures, and the works. And in the fall, I thought, oh, this will be easy. I've had the whole summer off and the spring off, basically. I can do this. And it turns out that virtual school is a lot harder than it looks. And it really, although I've ended up with good grades both fall and spring semesters, thankfully.
That's good.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very happy about it. But it was a real ride to get there. And as for creating content, I haven't been making real news at all. This is the first time I'm making real news in a while. During the pandemic, I'm a part of MSU Telecasters, so we produced fake parody news, which, what's the difference? But,
right.
We produced fake parody news virtually, and we would all shoot our own parts and get them edited together. And the real name of the game was flexibility, and just looking out for each other over the air. It's been a crazy social experience in that regard, and I'm just glad that I get to go back in August to my own apartment, to room with people and dine with people and start creating content with people again.
And yeah, right. I mean, because the whole Zoom thing, it's just been so interesting, and it takes the personality out of it to some degree, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, the interaction. I mean, we're in the studio together, so it's awesome to actually be able to interview people face to face again.
Oh yeah, interviews and of course everything that's on Zoom. Lectures in school are especially difficult. Writers' meetings for telecasters. You have to go one at a time because if you talk over each other, stuff's going to break. Some people don't have good internet, some do. Taking all of that middleman out of the equation next fall will be such a game changer.
Okay, so tell me, I asked Erica this, so I'm going to ask you too. What is the biggest thing you've learned?
There are so many lessons to take out of the pandemic. Erica discussed, perspective, and I very much agree with that. The other big lesson, especially related to the business, is, as I said earlier, flexibility. There was so many things, schedules that had to change while we were creating Telecasters content. Getting things done on time is a lot harder when we're not together doing our shoots in Studio E in the Com Arts building. So flexibility was probably the biggest broadcasting lesson I took out of it. But in general, it's real. It gives you a real sense of perspective when you watch the news and see what's going on all across the country all of these months. So yeah, I'm thankful for that I've been able to stay healthy. I have a chronic disease even, so it's been especially difficult to, you go out there and you're like on your toes.
Right.
So thankfully I've come out of this with no COVID, as healthy as can be, and I have a lot of people to thank for that, and a lot of things to be thankful for. So yeah, it's flexibility, perspective.
Okay, so you are going to be the intern this summer before you are able to go back to school. So tell me, what is the one thing you're looking forward to here at the Splash and to be a part of this?
One thing I'm really looking forward to is, and I didn't think I'd be doing this so early, but getting to make my own news packages. I think at a lot of places that's the sort of thing you might get to ease into. If you go to like one of the bigger places, you don't know what you'll get to do. You might be fetching coffee or something. Here, this is local access television, and I've been thrown right into the thick of it.
Okay, well, you know what? We are super excited you're here. It's so nice to see you again in a different setting, right? Mm-hmm. And Daniel, as you mentioned, he actually went into the community this week to speak to a community partner about her work to help get the community active and social again as the pandemic comes to a close.
85 degrees. That's been the consistent weather over the past week. Summer has arrived in Michigan, and after a cruel winter and mild spring, what better place to feel the heat than your local public park? Kelly Heyer, Recreation Superintendent at West Bloomfield Parks, is all too aware of the critical role her department has played, especially during the pandemic.
Back in June, a year ago, when the restrictions were lifted, the stay-at-home orders was lifted, we saw our park attendance just skyrocket to numbers we've never seen before, pre-pandemic. So we knew right away that, okay, people are going to seek us out, and how are we going to handle this? So that's
as important as the parks were last year. This coming June, they'll be getting even more of a boost. On Thursday, Governor Whitmer announced the lifting of all outdoor capacity limits starting June 1st. That means West Bloomfield favorites like Marshbank Park, once sparsely attended, will now be brimming with life.
For us, this is great news because we can lift some of the capacity limitations. So for example, our outdoor concert series, last year we were capped at 100. We still did it at 100 people last year. And this summer, up until today, we were anticipating a cap of 300. So we're really excited to be able to lift and serve more patrons, get back to a little bit of a normal cadence.
The governor also announced the increasing of indoor capacity to 50%, which opens up even more possibilities. The West Bloomfield Sports Club is already welcoming back its members, some of whom will be returning for the first time since March 2020. With the fast approaching lifting day of June 1st, West Bloomfield Parks are still working out the details.
Right now, Senior Center Connect is closed and will remain closed until we do have the final touches on our plans for that. But as far as outdoor stuff, we have a lot planned. And so, like you said, give us a few more days to take a look at capacities and we'll be lifting those.
Although the plans are not yet finished, Heyer is already excited about a further return to normalcy.
I'm a people person. I love people, I love gatherings, I love organizing large-scale events and seeing the masses create memories for their families and enjoy every space that we have here. We're very fortunate in West Bloomfield to have amazing park spaces and trails. So for me not to be able to come in the office and see everybody on a daily basis, it's been really hard.
This June 1st, expect to hear music, joy, and laughter all over town. For The Splash, I'm Daniel Zivian.
For more, you can visit civiccentertv.com/post-pandemic social. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll take a look back and celebrate the people who have gone above and beyond to keep us safe during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Don't go away. You're watching The Splash on Civic Center TV.
Can I ask you a question? Why'd you get vaccinated?
I'd like to go to these school dances and spring break to have fun.
I want to be in person for college next semester.
I want to get out of this pandemic.
I wanted to protect the people around me.
Why did you get vaccinated?
Because I'm really looking forward to hanging out with my friends.
I just want to go to a show, dance around, not have to worry about anything, feel like I'm free again.
So we can not miss out on the best years of our life.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior. These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance. They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different. One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games? Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate. So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Whatever gets you talking.
I choose.
I choose.
I choose.
I choose. I choose to stay above the influence for my education.
For my sports and my family.
For football.
To protect my future.
To pursue my dream of becoming a lawyer.
Because cheer is important to me.
I stay above the influence because I can focus better in school and make a positive impact on the world.
For my family and as well my passion in photography.
So I can keep my focuses on my dream.
To be a great leader and focus on my archery.
Because I want to have a strong mind and a strong body.
To protect my future.
To stay healthy and to stay safe.
I stay above the influence to continue to pursue what I love.
Because I'm an athlete and I don't want to damage my body.
To spread positivity through my peers and to be a positive leader in my community.
To focus on my extracurricular activities.
Because as an advocate for You Matter at my high school, I believe in relying on a support system of friends and loved ones rather than turning to substance abuse.
Because I want to be the best I can be for those I love.
For my family and for my health.
I'm above the influence because of books and this ball.
And now, back to The Splash on Civic Center TV.
Welcome back to this special edition of The Splash on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. I'm Brooke Allen. Over the past 14 months of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have all witnessed firsthand those who have kept working, sacrificed, and even in some cases given their lives in order to keep our community and our neighbors safe and healthy. And we believe that there are no better people to honor in our first Person of the Week segment in over a year than those on the front lines. As we struggle to adjust to a new normal where we kept at a distance, the individuals working to keep our grocery stores stocked, keep our community safe, and support the public health work tirelessly to ease our worries and keep our society functioning. And we thank our firefighters, our police officers, teachers, and nurses, as well as the grocery store and restaurant workers, and so many more, all who have sacrificed and put their own health and safety at risk to keep us going during this historic crisis. And while we can never repay them for their sacrifice, our community will be forever grateful for their service, perseverance, and courage, which is why our frontline workers are our People of the Week. That's it for this special episode of The Splash. You can join us weekly for new episodes on Tuesdays at 5:30 p.m. on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99, as well as online and HD on CivicCenterTV.com. And of course, follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Civic Center TV to stay up to date with the latest from here at Civic Center TV. And you can also listen to me weekdays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on WWJ News Radio 950 and online on the Odyssey app. For all of our friends in Sylvan Lake, Orchard Lake, Eagle Harbor, and West Bloomfield, I'm Brooke Allen. Thank you for watching The Splash.
And thank you, Brooke Allen, for that. That is the Greater West Bloomfield's news magazine show, The Splash, here on the Oakland County Megacast, a very special edition of the Oakland County Megacast as we bring you our second hour of the programming in a nice premiere of Greater West Bloomfield's news magazine show, The Splash. Well, for those of you that are watching us on our replay and online, that is going to do it for this edition of the Oakland County Megacast. We will return with a regular episode, 2 hours long, with interviews with guests from throughout the local area tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Ronnie Dahl and I will be back here speaking with another slew of very interesting guests on important topics here in our community. For our entire team, Ronnie Dahl, Jake Kustash, our booking producer, Larry Nyland, our Zoom producer, and everyone else involved here at Civic Center TV, we thank you for joining us on today's edition of the Oakland County Megacast. The Megacast returns tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.